Okay, hi guys and welcome to the show, and today a very special video indeed because I have the honor and privilege to share with you a watch I designed myself in collaboration with the legendary Swiss dive watch maker Squale. Now before I get into this, I've got to do a quick wristwatch check. I'm wearing my 1950s Omega. I nicknamed it the Marble because, well, as you can see, that stunning patina dial. Probably the last time I'm going to be wearing this on video, as I am selling it. I've decided I've got to let one of my Omegas go. I can't keep them all, and I've chosen to keep my World War II pilot's watch. As you can imagine, well, it's very difficult, but yeah, I'm just enjoying it before it leaves. So a little bit sad, but yeah, I can't keep everything. Anyway, let's get on with the review. Squale, as you guys know, is a brand that I've been enamored and obsessed with for a few years now. The Squale 1521, which is a watch I just fell in love with. It got me acquainted with the brand. I've been in love with it ever since. It's become a permanent keeper in my own collection. It's a brand with an incredible history, founded by Charles von Buren. They specialize only in dive watches, and today Squale is owned by the Maggi family, who were previously the distributors of Von Buren and Squale watches. What is wonderful, last year I got to meet Andrea, the boss there. He was in New York for an event. We talked about watches, and it was wonderful. I mean, he really is extremely proud of the brand, and he grew up with the Von Burens, and they are family friends. And when the founder of Squale, Charles von Buren, retired, it was just a logical transition for Andrea and his family to take over. So it's not some resurrected brand like so many out there. It's something that is extremely special with a very long, prestigious history that I'll go into in just a moment. But today is an extremely important day. It really is a dream come true. I'm a bit overwhelmed with emotion because I'm just so proud to bring this to you today. We'll start with a little bit of background on Squale if you're not familiar. They were founded in 1946. Von Buren began to produce his own range of professional dive watches under the Squale name, which Squale of course means shark, both in French and in Italian. In Italian it's pronounced Squale, like I pronounce it, being Italian. Of course, I'm going to pronounce it like that. And then in French, it's Squale. I believe the correct way is Squale, as it is Swiss, founded in Neuchâtel. Their headquarters is now in Milan, but they are still Swiss-made. He was also one of the first not to market his watches for jewelry stores, but rather specialty dive stores, which is very cool indeed. During the 1960s and 70s, Squale provided cases. They were pretty much famous for their case making. They made cases for Blancpain, Tag Heuer, Doxa, countless others. They even made cases for Zinn at one point. Those are just some of the big names there. They also supplied watches for the Italian Air Forces and of course the Italian Navy, which is the Marina Militare Italiana. So what a wonderful history there. Not only that, Jacques Mayol broke the world record for diving numerous occasions wearing Squale watch. Tony Salvatore, the French champion, Jean Tapeau, the world champion diver in 1967. The history is just so rich and quite astonishing for a relatively small and rather obscure brand. It's a brand that true dive watch connoisseurs know about, but not necessarily big in the mainstream, which is something I find kind of endearing about them. You can really tell that somebody that knows their watches and knows their especially about diving watches, will know about Squale. It's something very special indeed. So I think the best way to start this review is to compare. I've got the standard blue, well, it's far from standard. I have the blue 1521 and of course my special Lion Shark edition. Now I've called it Lion Shark obviously in reference to my family crest, which has the lion in it, and a little kind of play on words, tiger shark, lion shark, the king predator of the land and the top predator of the ocean. I've hyphenated it, a little nod to the way Rolex name their watches. Date, you know, just a little cheeky nod to that. So at first glance, it looks very similar. There's obviously a color change. However, there are some very kind of carefully considered design changes. And as I said, this has taken almost a year now. and it has really been insightful into the whole watch designing procedure and just how much how much time these things really take to go from just a sketch or a conversation in the restaurant to, you know, the final finished thing. So yeah, I'm just overwhelmed really with pride and emotion right now. But the case is pretty much identical. Part of its uniqueness and individuality is all down to this amazing case. So the scale is exactly the same. However, there's one big difference here, and this is the first 1521 without a date. And as you can see, I've designed this kind of slate gray sunburst dial. Something I did love about the blue one was that dial. I just fell in love with it. It reminds me of the Mediterranean, this kind of azzurro, the way it changes in the light. I also wanted to add a little bit of red. This is kind of maroon red, but I didn't want to make it too flamboyant, too lively, because I also wanted it to be compatible with a lot more NATOs and straps, that kind of thing. I also wanted to have a black leather strap. This is a beautiful made in Italy, as you see. That, I mean, they always have such fantastic handmade leather straps. The styler hands and the color for that matter, I decided to keep exactly the same. I feel it's so integral to the identity of the Squale 1521. To change it would be to lose some of that identity and what makes this watch so special. I adore that orange hand. That bright neon is just so, well, it's functional for a start. It's a color that works wonderfully in low light, hence why so many divers use orange, of course, and we've discussed this many times. And obviously, because it is to be used in conjunction with the dive time bezel, you want to have it a different color than the hour hand, because it's the most important hand when it comes to actual diving. The bezel is exactly the same. We get a 60 click unidirectional, and these are the newer improved bezels as well. Some of the previous generations of 1521s, the bezel had a little bit of play. These are really nice and tight and very solid feeling. The case again is stainless steel. I've done away with lettering on the side. I just think it's a little bit more cleaner. I don't mind it. Some people think it's a bit overkill. It is something very typical of Squale because, of course, as we mentioned in the beginning, they made cases for other companies. So they're very proud of this case. This case really is, I wouldn't say iconic, but it's distinctive and unique to Squale. I decided to go with the high polish. I've always loved the high polish. I did consider the bead blasted, but I feel I just love the pizzazz and the beautiful finishing of the high polish. That sloping frame of the dial there is also in a high polish, and I love that because at certain angles it reflects off the markers and gives it a kind of a sense like that it's almost in water in itself, which is something captivating in its own way. We also do get a loom pip in the bezel as your standard 1521. We get the same coin edge bezel. It's pretty much the same there. However, the real difference is in the dial. So as you can see, without the date, there's a greater sense of symmetry here and balance. To make way for my crest and TGV Lion Shark, I had to cut off the tip of the 12 o'clock marker, giving it a trapezium shape. I then decided, well, I would keep the rectangle at the bottom to give orientation. So in, this is of course Superluminova, you can still decipher and figure out which way 12 o'clock is. Then I've repeated the trapezium shapes on the sides. Gives it a modern look, differentiates it from the standard markers. The markers also have a secondary feature to their design. I've positioned it to mimic the cross of the lion, inspired in part by the good luck charm that Patek use. If you remember my review of the Calatrava, they use the Calatrava cross as a good luck charm. So I thought for a diving watch it would be fitting to have a little bit of good luck charm included. Italians are naturally very superstitious, and I thought it a nice coincidence of having it this way up, not only for assisting orientation, a little bit of more of a distinctiveness unique to the no date version. The grey was also quite difficult to pick. They nailed it. I must say I spent weeks considering the colors. I wanted red again because a little bit different from the Squale that are in existence already. Also, with the popularity of the True to Black Bay, I feel red is a wonderful color to have on divers. It is, like the orange, very visible in low light. So for a diver, I think reds, orange, bright colors really do work. It's a little bit more subdued. I didn't want to go too over the top with it, and also I didn't want it to clash too much with the orange. And trust me, we went through a lot of different reds. I think this balance is perfect. We've kept that sunburst because I just love the way it plays in the light, and in certain angles it does look like a deep blue. Other times it looks black, other times it looks light gray. It's just dazzling. It still says ocean without having to be blue, which I think is just wonderful. The markers in between the trapezium and rectangles are exactly the same, and I've kept the paddle style second hand. This to me is very typical of Squale. Something that they did insist is, and very special to Squale, is that they always sign it. Some people don't understand why they sign it twice. If you've seen Squale cases that they've made for Doxa or Blank Pan, they will have the brand here, and then they will have the case maker here, and again it pays homage to their rich heritage in case making. The crown again at the 4 o'clock is exactly the same. We get the screw down, and this is where we do have the Honduran logo referencing that incredible history. On the back it's pretty much the same. We get the screw down case back with the inscription there. This is of course a 500-meter diver, automatic, so you get the same information on the back. The case being the same, the size is the same. It's essentially a 42mm diameter watch with a thickness of 14 millimeters. I forget the lug to lug, let me just check it now. Lug to lug is 48, and then of course we get a 20mm lug width. I gotta say it is a 42, but it wears much smaller. It famously wears like a 40, so that is why I went with this case. So the sapphire is a flat sapphire glass. It does have anti-reflective coating, I believe, on the inside and the outside. I was tempted to go with a domed. Unfortunately, they didn't have the domed crystal to fit this particular size. However, I'm very happy with this crystal. I didn't want to go too far away from the original 1521. Now, guys, bear in mind this is the test version. A few little things that will be perfected to the final 100. I believe there's going to be 100, and this is of course a limited edition. This is the very first one made, and I also have gone with my family crest. As you guys know, I inherited the first watch that really kicked off my collection was my grandfather's pocket watch, and he had the family crest engraved on the back. I also inherited his signet ring, which also started a passion for jewelry and signet rings as well. This is a family tradition, and when I was 21, my parents decided that it would be handed down to me. And everyone wears the signet ring and carries the crest in our family. It's family tradition. So to have it on the watch, I couldn't have imagined a better brand that is as close to my heart as Squale. So the movement inside is exactly the same. I didn't want anything changed. Obviously the date going is the only change there. So it's the ETA 2824-2. I'm a huge fan of, very affordable to maintain, extremely reliable. It's a rugged, solid, respected movement that's been in production since 1982. It has a 38 to 40 hour power reserve, operates at 28,800 vibrations an hour. So 25 joule movement. Accuracy is about +9 on this, although, you know, with regulation, it can achieve easily within COSC. And of course, it has hacking and manual wind. Something I do love about the combination of this case and the crown position at 4 is that when you unscrew the crown, because of course this is a 500-meter water-resistant diver, when you manually wind it, it's a little bit tricky with gloves on, but because of the angle of these incredible lugs, these beautiful curvy but yet angular style lugs, the finger just glides up the lug, incredibly easy to wind. So it has a double purpose of also protecting the crown, being pleasure to manipulate, but also when screwed down, it also tucks it away so it does not protrude. If I pull it out all the way, you can see it's got hacking. And as you would imagine, It threads beautifully. I mean, the mastery of Squale when it comes to case making is exquisite. So anyway, let's pop it on the wrist and see how it wears. So there we go. On my tiny little wrist, it just wears marvelously. The weight is about 103 grams. It is a bit of a tall one, although on the strap it hugs the wrist because of those curved pointing downwards lugs. It really does hug the wrist nicely. The strap is extremely substantial, holds it in place. I love the quality. I mean, this is what the Italians do so well. They're famous, world renowned for their leather goods. The buckle is brushed with sign there, etched beautifully, the Squale logo. I did consider having maybe a tanned strap, but you know, the strap at the end of the day, I think black is a bit more compatible with the colors. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to take the strap off and I'm going to show it to you on a NATO strap. And there we go. Now, as you can see on the, I guess, the modern Bond strap, it works perfectly. The gray, the black. I spent a lot of time considering the colors, and I'm over the moon. I think it's something that Squale always does so right. The quality is there as well, which is to be expected. It's beautiful curves, those beveled edges. It looks like it's been sculpted. Squale watches for me always have a sense of fun. They always have a lively nature to them that just is so kind of invigorating and enthralling. Just captivated me since the very first time I bought one. Almost a sense of la dolce vita. You really have to see it in person and feel it in person to understand the quality and why, you know, you can't possibly criticize something like this until you've experienced it. I also love the way the outside of the bezel gently slopes down towards that coin edge. The style of lettering on the insert is exactly the same. I'm very happy with that. I didn't want that changed. The passion, the style, the elegance with that kind of little Italian flair, but yet the quality of being Swiss made. I would have never imagined in a million years. So I could go to my grave happy. I really can. I can't believe it. I keep pinching myself. It's amazing, really is. I also think the fact that it's in such limited amount, its uniqueness with the lack of date will just ensure that it will become collectible, and certainly unlike the rest of the 1521 range. It's certainly got a ton of personality and character all of its own, and I'm just so proud to have my name and my family crest. I mean, my family is incredibly proud, and they can hardly believe it too, so it's just fantastic. I have my 1521 on Squale's own NATO strap, which are probably one of the most beautifully made NATO straps I've ever handled. I mean, these things are really, really quality made items, although they are a little bit expensive, somehow worth it. If you're a big Squalinista like me, you just got to have one in your collection. But as you can imagine, the olive is going to work tremendously well with it as well. So actually, you know what? I might pop it on and wear it today. So yeah, that's the Squale, the Lion Shark. So this watch is going to be officially sold by Squale Distributors, which is fantastic because, as I've said several times, I have no intention of becoming a watch dealer or watch seller. So it's a perfect relationship because I get to have the watch of my dreams, but yet none of the hassle of having to sell it, which is just fantastic. And I think it being in such a extremely limited amount will make it that extra little bit of a rarity and something for the die-hard gentry. Anyway guys, so I'm going to leave it there. A momentous day indeed. I'm just so proud, and thank you guys for supporting me and making all my dreams come true. This is really an incredibly memorable day for me, and I just, yeah, it's nobody's ever had a watch made in their honor in my family before, so yeah, I'm just chuffed to bits, guys, really chuffed to bits. Let me know your thoughts, queries, comments, opinions, all the rest of it down below. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed it and found it useful, and as always guys, I will catch you in the next one. Okay, ciao.